Welcome back, Be Better Tribe. This is your host, Julian Alvarez. This podcast is meant to explore stories, lessons, and leadership journeys that shape who we become. And one of the things that I respect most in any career is someone that has consistently performed and gotten promoted over time. And it's not just one big year, it's not one promotion, but it's stacking growth year over year. So today's guest is someone had the chance to work with over the past 2.5 years. It's somebody whose trajectory has really stood out to me. And that individual is Brian LaManna. Brian has gone from an SDR to enterprise seller over 8 years. And within that 8 years, he's earned promotion after promotion along the way. And this has happened over 2 different companies. So it really shows the resilience within a company to get promoted 3 to 4 times in each of those settings. He's also not only done that, but he's built a massive following on LinkedIn by sharing practical frameworks that actually help sellers improve. He founded Closed One, and it helps reps create repeatable processes and systems to lead to real results. So Brian is someone who represents what it looks like to take ownership of your career and invest in getting better every single day. So I'm excited to have Brian on the Be Better podcast. So let me go ahead and welcome him in. All right, welcome in the myth, the legend, the one and only Brian LaManna. I'm excited to have you here. Obviously, we've worked together over the past 2.5 years, gotten to know each other a little bit better, but excited to have you on the Be Better podcast. Thanks for joining, Brian.
Yeah, thanks so much, John. Excited to be here.
Cool. So obviously, I went through your background a little bit prior to this, but would love to just understand what got you into tech sales. What had you pivot, after college, getting into tech sales? What made you drive to join that type of job?
Yeah, I always had some interest in like business growing up and trying to do, little things in high school and middle school and such. But I originally thought I wanted to do more like sports marketing. I think I just deep down love sports and was trying to figure out a way to keep that train going. So I joined, I went to Indiana University and started as a marketing major, and was fortunate enough that had a friend one day that told me he was going to some sales workshop event and was like, "What are you doing tonight?" And luckily I had no plans. So joined that workshop. Eventually, about a month or two later, got an internship through it. Took a role with Anheuser-Busch in more of like an outside sales position.
Okay.
I learned everything I didn't like about sales and outside sales, with it being no commission, heavy travel, a declining industry in beer sales. But I'd heard at the time about other people interning at companies like Salesforce and Oracle and how much commission they made and how competitive it was. And I think it drew me to a lot of those components. So I was lucky to kind of find something through what I didn't like.
I love that. It's that transition from, similar to me, marketing over to sales, where you just kind of fall into place. And a lot of the times individuals are searching for like the golden ticket of like what I want to do for the rest of my life. And a lot of the time it just falls into it. And I love your story about not liking certain elements and kind of growing into a role that actually really suits you. And so with the role, obviously you've had an amazing track record over, the last 8 or so years. You're a top seller at an amazing company. And so I'd love to understand, what are you consistently doing or have consistently done in your career to like continue to propel and get promoted?
Yeah, I definitely take pride in how I operate in terms of my systems, my time management. Like if you zoom out and assume that every seller is working a similar amount of time, and that's 40 or so hours per week, there are some people that are getting just drastically more done and a higher quality output in their 40 hours versus somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I've done a good job at in each one of my roles, started as an SDR, worked my way up to an account executive position, then came over to Gong, started ground floor SMB level 1, and worked my way up to enterprise today, was really kind of deconstruct each role and understand what does it take to be a 200% performer, a
Sure.
300% performer, and reverse engineer that a little bit.
Yeah.
And as an account executive in particular, like there's so many different roles and responsibilities we have. We get pulled in so many different directions. There's so much noise, but like if you just simplify things, there's two things that are going to get you to President's Club each year. It's number one, staying on top of your active deals and advancing your pipeline. And number two, it's the creation of net new pipeline.
Mm,
So if you can try to center your week around those two activities
sure.
as much as possible, and if you can spend 70 or 80% of your week on those two buckets, when other sellers might spend 25 to 30% of their week on revenue generating activities, easier said than done, but I try to be really intentional with my time and how I construct my day and my week.
I love that. And so, like, for me, it's like your systems in your operations and how you're spending your time, like reverse engineering back from what's going to make you successful to like the simple tasks of what you need to get done from what I heard from you, which is really thoughtful. And you can implement that into a lot of different roles. Like you just got to find those high value activities that you needed to get done and then just really do them over and over and really get the best. So I love that. One thing that about this podcast that we all always like to tap into is some sort of leader, some sort of coach and how they impacted you in a positive way. And so when you think back about all the coaches and leaders that you've worked under, what are some of the key attributes that they've done that really have gotten the best out of you?
Yeah, I try to take like no matter what manager I have or mentor or top performer in my segment, like a couple takeaways from each person.
Mhm.
And I think that's been kind of my approach in each role as well as like use a high school analogy, like how can I super score from like an ACT? Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to copy off the person getting a C in the class, and like maybe Julian's the number one performer, but like that doesn't mean Julian's great at everything. Maybe Julian's tremendous at top of funnel, and maybe Kaylee is amazing at discovery, and trying to really take like the elements from the top performers, but specifically what they're so amazing at. And that's been my approach everywhere I've gone in each role. And even in enterprise for the first time last year is like come in with zero ego,
Yep.
understand you're the absolute worst in enterprise. You're at the bottom of the totem pole until you prove yourself, until you actually earn that. And, uh, of course, take some of the learnings that helped get you there, but come in like a complete sponge and just take a couple of those learnings from each people. For me at Bright Edge, when I was a AE for the first time, I had a leader, Scott Beaterwolf, that was amazing. He was a sales manager, worked 5+ years at Salesforce and Career Builder beforehand, super seasoned. And one of the things he taught me was just how to look at my pipeline, how to assess
Mm,
risk, how to lean into that in every opportunity. And I still do it today. I call it like my plays of the day, but I start every single day and I walk through each one of my opportunities and I think through the biggest risk in my deal. And I think through one action that I could
mm,
potentially take today to try to advance that deal. Even if I don't have a next call until next Thursday, could I share a value touch out today? Could I think of an event that we're having upcoming that maybe we could get them to? Could I try to an exact to exact jersey match type play? I'm just trying to constantly think through like those creative plays. And I do that first thing in the morning before there's all that noise with
sure.
emails and slacks. And I just have a lot of that clarity in my head as well.
I love that. And so what was the name of your leader at Bright Edge?
Scott Beaterwolf.
Scott Peterwolf. So Scott, in my opinion, he tapped into like the competency that he had as a really strong leader, his experience, and showed you the playbook to help you drive success within your pipeline, which is a really valuable thing as a sales professional. Which as a leader, like you really want to showcase your competencies and show your team that path to success, which is a great there. The second thing that I heard, which is also something I coach my SDR team on, is it's a copycat game in sales. There are individuals on our team that are maybe not doing the most KPIs, but their output is really high. So they're finding some efficiency somewhere. Go learn what they're doing and then do more KPIs. And that's going to be your path to over performance. So I love that piece where it's like you could take something from anybody. You just got to find what they're really good at. I absolutely love it. So switching gears so slightly, obviously you've built such an amazing brand on LinkedIn. You're sharing your learnings. You've built Close One. company. There people can follow you there and learn from how you're executing on deals. But I gotta ask, putting yourself out there is hard. It's not easy. And so like as you're thinking back on your journey, like what's made it all worth it? What are some of the things that you've gained from like just, having the courage to putting yourself out there?
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons. I'll be the the first to admit. I think what started it for me was just like the curiosity. When I
Mm,
joined Gong in 2021, I was definitely not the first person to think of posting on LinkedIn. Our CEO, Meet Bendoff, was posting, and Udi Ledergor, CMO, was there, other top reps, Sarah Brazier at the time that was. So I was probably that, quote unquote copycat per se. And what I really what kind of drew me to it was just the idea of like me sharing once a week or once every other couple of weeks, like something going well in my role, something not going well. Hey, I just got off a call and screwed up. What were my learnings? And almost using LinkedIn like a public facing journal to kind of
that's
make
really
me like
cool.
articulate my thoughts and my learnings. And even though I was still newer in my overall career of, being a seller for maybe 5 years at the time when I started, I on one hand, I was like, I don't have the credibility to post and put myself out there, but what got me to eventually was like, hey, I know there's someone in their career that might be a couple steps behind me, or that can probably learn something that I'm going through. And I think for anyone listening out there that's considering, like, even if you're 3 months into SDR, like there is somebody a couple steps behind you. Maybe they're in college, or maybe they're in another category and they're thinking of breaking into tech sales. And like, I bet you're going through things in your day to day that are valuable, and just sharing like authentic stories and lessons, if you want to, is super beneficial. So obviously it comes with some extra noise and some extra attention, and
Totally.
at times I do feel extra pressure. Probably if I had like two horrible quarters, it'd be really easy to
Yeah.
point to the excuse of like, oh, he's busy doing other things, or he's busy on social, when like that's not the case. Like, I'm obviously locked in and all in on going related stuff, but it it definitely outweighs the negatives.
Yeah, you know what? That's such a great point. Is like whatever walk of life we're in, wherever we're at in our journey, somebody is looking to follow those steps, whatever it may be. So the value that we can add is there. The second piece, I also thought for myself, at least, Brian, coming to Gong and seeing individuals like you who have really built a strong brand has been inspirational. And for me, what I found is starting this podcast, it gets me out of my comfort zone and it holds me accountable to like get better and improve. And so I don't know if you found that as like a also as a positive to posting so much and adding relevant content to people, but I for me it's like it's an accountability metric for myself to get better, you know?
Yeah, there's been so many benefits that like I did not start with any of these intentions. I think
Yeah,
number one is like selfishly as a seller, like my writing has improved so much. Uh Email copy is now like, email is my number one channel. It never was before I started on LinkedIn, because I
totally.
got more articulate and concise, and I learned how to convey messages. I use that for proposals, for business cases, for what we learn slides in our world. The other piece I'd say is it forces you to kind of pause a little bit when you have to write, and if you're sharing lessons or frameworks, like you have to deconstruct what you're doing. And I think a lot of the times as sellers, uh, we're just kind of going. We're on that hamster wheel, and you don't really take time to slow down and like break down your process. And when you have to break down your process and teach it to somebody else, you get way better at it.
Totally.
You just do, and you'll also learn different efficiencies or inefficiencies that there may be when you have to kind of deconstruct it and break things down. So it's had a massive impact on my sales career in ways that I truly did not think of or were not on my radar.
Yeah, because once you put yourself out there and like actually have to coach others, it's like you really have to know what you're talking about because of the fact like I feel like it's that one lesson that you've always heard of like once you have to teach it is really when you're gonna master that craft per se. And so like I do appreciate that. So I appreciate you sharing there. And so then to pivot, you started Close One to help sellers improve their pipeline and execution. So if you had to identify one or two patterns you consistently see separating top performers from everyone else outside of like systems in reverse engineering. Is there anything else top of mind that you're seeing within your own teachings?
Yeah, it's true. Like there's so many little things I think in sales that like compound and add up. And I could definitely point to a couple. I think like one is just like having a sense of urgency in everything you're doing, a
I love
sense of
that.
urgency of like responding to customers, to getting out the action items you promised on a conversation, to I have a huge demo next Thursday as an example. Like I'm sending out the prep for that this afternoon and I'm doing the prep call on Monday, like well ahead of it in case there needs to be edits or changes. And I want to make sure other people show up well prepared. So like it definitely isn't one thing, but it's like how you just the standard you hold yourself to and the way that you try to maximize like each and every day, like it does truly compound. And you know, part of it is just work effort and putting in the time and effort too. Like if you're taking off every Friday from 1 to 5 as an example as an AE, like those 4 hours, they don't kill you 1 week. But if you're doing that every single
Mm.
week or you're um starting a little bit later some days and you're starting behind on the day where you already have 6 emails in your inbox and 5 Slacks, like it's hard to go through that plays of the day system that we talked about earlier and think through your pipeline when like you're starting behind the 8 ball. So I think it's just like how you operate as like a business owner of your own territory.
Yeah, and like what you said, I actually just did the quick math on my calculator. 208 hours if you take 4 hours every week, and that adds up. That 208 hours that you could have spent prospecting or following up or digging in deeper to a deal is going to be the difference between President's Club and not. Like I for surely believe that. And what I loved is the sense of urgency, at least for sales dev, what I lead team members, when you see successful SDRs and or AEs and or leaders, they have this standard of urgency that they can unplug at certain times, but they respond quick and they know how to prioritize and how to get back to individuals when they need to, which is extremely important. So I align with that for sure. And I know we have a hard stop here, and I love the Indiana jersey as a Raider fan. Got big kudos to Fernando Mendoza. Love that. So hopefully you and I can maybe watch a game in the future. But well, the way we always like to end here, Brian, is giving advice back. So obviously, in someone earlier in their career, maybe someone's trying to transition into tech sales or transition into a new role, or they're just having a really tough time and having a tough stretch in their career. What advice would you give them, and why would you give them that advice?
Hopefully Fernando Mendoza is tuning into the podcast and hears this as well. I'd love to hear what his answer would be.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Looking back on his career, but I think having a bias towards action, and it kind of goes
Mm,
off what we were just speaking about, but I actually have that written down on I have a like vision board in front of me at home, and I have,
I love that.
from when I won President's Club or, a certain order form I'm proud of. And I have that written out, just like bias towards action. And that's one of the things I try to always lean into from like an identity perspective, but it goes off the urgency piece. But like don't be afraid to try new things, don't be afraid to pivot. I wouldn't have started Closed One, I wouldn't be on this podcast if I didn't decide, hey, I thought of the idea to start posting on LinkedIn. I did it the next day. Like when you have those ideas, just do it. Don't wait till they're perfect. If you think of a new sequence or a new calling strategy or a new opener, like just freaking go for it. The worst that can happen is it doesn't work well, and you can iterate or you can kill it off altogether. But make sure to flip it around when you do think of those new ideas for prospecting or deal execution or anything else too, and just flip around instead of like, hey, what if this fails? Flip it around to, hey, what if this goes 3 times better than I could ever imagine?
Mm,
From me, when I started posting on LinkedIn, I was definitely thinking of like, hey, what if this is embarrassing and what if it fails? But like, I didn't imagine the 10 to 20x of like different results and how it's helped me in my personal life and at Gong and financially as well, and just all the different repercussions. So don't be afraid to give new tactics and strategies a try, and kind of use that like own internal machine learning per se to
yeah.
continue to like tweak and iterate.
I love that. And I love what you're representing here, and how you're articulating it. The three things that I'm taking away and what I'm walking away with, what again, sales, life transition, whatever the case may be, it's like there is like the operational systems that you want to put in place, whether that's atomic habits, cues, cravings, those types of learnings, and then have some sense of urgency of what you're trying to accomplish. And then the last thing is be biased towards action. And what I found, what I heard from you is like, have the courage to take a step forward. Even if you are going to fail, even if you are going to be embarrassed, it doesn't matter. Like, take that first step because it can and will compound if you stay consistent with it. So I really do appreciate it, Brian. Thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Wish you nothing but the best. And hopefully you and I can cheer on Fernando Mendoza over the next year or so.
Go Raiders. I'm excited for it. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me, Jalen.
Take care. See ya.